Oh, thank you for that. That was, yeah. I'm all over the place today, as evidenced by the fact that I don't know what the fuck I'm doing and I don't even have the right, like, stream title or anything. So let me just change this. Just save that. I'm just gonna update this. Cool, 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 cool. Incorrect. Wrong game. Dragon Age. Save. Holy smokes. So how are we? Incorrect. Don't do that. Oh my god. Alright. Well, it is what it is. It would be cool if I could, like, see the chat and my slides at the same time. Big scary. Anyway, how is everything going now? Is everything audible? Are we good? Are we all right? This is the correct mic? It is the correct mic. All right, cool. So how are we? We just sit comfortably. Settle into this. Thank fucking God. The lack of game sound right now is like, it's really throwing me off. And it looks like the chat is displaying properly. Okay, 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 okay. Great, great and good. Wonderful. I'm gonna leave this, I'm just gonna, ramble for a little while longer before I get into this. But as you can see, I did actually, I put together an actual presentation. There are 54 slides, so y'all are in for it. I do not regret. Oh no! Did you find it? That sucks. I don't think I've ever. I didn't lose my ID ever, but I have let it accidentally expire before. So that was not great. Yeah, 54 slides. And I was working on it like right up until the moment that I had to like scarf down some dinner and get going here. Also, I made it on a Mac and I forgot that it doesn't have the same file type, so I had to quickly figure out how to export it as a PDF, not a PDF, a PowerPoint. So that was fun. It's fun for me now existing in a cross-platform life. That stinks. That's really inconvenient. I am sorry to hear that. I wish I had some like background music. Damn. Why didn't I think of this shit? I'm not very clever, I think is the real takeaway here. But like, look, I downloaded fonts and everything. I feel very proud of myself. I was hoping not to sit here and, ramble on about nothing for too long. But you know what? We're good. We're fine. I may have. I mean, that's fair. I should probably do some spring cleaning. I should probably clean full stop. But why? Why bother? No one comes to my house. It doesn't matter. But anyway, like, yeah, I now have read 2 Dragon Age books in a week. And let me just say, they were not the best books. I had already read them in the past. They have a lot of interesting tidbits in them, but I would not say that as books they are my favorite thing in the world. Oh, well, that was very nice of you. Looking under beds. Quite good. I should someday look under my bed. No, but like if we're going to talk about Dragon Age books that are good, boy, I cannot wait to get into Last Flight. Meanwhile, I've been sitting over here like, oh, maybe I should get back to working out someday. Anyway, I've been not doing anything, which is not great. Usually this is usually the time of year that it's like, all right, I'm going to get my shit together. I'm going to do things. I'm going to be active. I'm going to go to bed at a reasonable time. I'm going to like stop snacking in between meals. And this year is, I mean, I look fine, sure, but I could look better. Should always strive for improvement. For one thing, my arms are not as thick around as someone's head, so I'm clearly not my ideal form. I want to get there. Also, crucially, staying active is probably going to keep me from fucking up my back again. And that's really... I'm really keen on that, I gotta say. Ugh. Alright, did I muted this? Yes, I did. Excellent. Wonderful! Anyway. I don't know how much longer I can wait. I'm gonna wait like a solid 10-15 minutes after the start of stream before I like just start going on my slides, but I'm like, I'm raring to go. I'm ready for this. I've been training. This is my wheelhouse that we are in. Also, I am so like keyed up about this that I have probably drunk like half my tea already, so. I did. I read 2 books. And the number of screen caps that I took of those books is actually absurd. There's going to be a ridiculous amount of text here. And I even culled this. I culled it down so much. I was like, actually don't need that little detail. That is spicy, but I'm not going to use it. And even so, it's like 54 slides. Oh, shit. I don't think I finished the Logain slide. Oh, whoops. Oh, well. It's okay. I can just talk about him. Oh boy, can I talk about him. Well. What's super cool also is that I read 2 books. And I talk about 2 books here. There's 6 books total. We're gonna need to get into some of this other stuff. Also, I found some great meta posts on Tumblr that I remember reading way, way back. And it's like, okay, so this is like, it's hinting at some things that I want to talk about, but I'm going to have to wait until we get through probably at least one of the games before I really dive into this stuff, because otherwise there's no context. Hilariously, there's even one of those books that I haven't read yet, because I think it's a collection of short stories, and so I was like, I'm going to put that off till later. But I went and I got it, so by the time we finish this game, probably, I will have read it. Also, I meant to haul over here just to show off my massive 2-volume World of Thetis books that I then did rebuy in Kindle form so that I can term search them. Because when you're on the go, a book like this big with sticky notes all over it is not really the portable option. So instead, I need a digital version. We're gonna dig into some of this. So far, the ones that were released before the first game were The Stolen Throne and The Calling. And they're the ones that I read this past week, that I reread this past week. And The Stolen Throne is... Oh, yeah, no. I'm super far gone. Like, I don't want... explain that this is a hyperfixation without explaining that this is a hyperfixation. It kind of is. This is, like... I'm not normal about Dragon Age. This is something that I've been intensely into for many, many, many years in a probably, frankly, unhealthy way. So... I spent most of the time on The Stolen Throne, just because it's probably more important, especially in the long term. And The Calling mostly has to do with the Grey Wardens, and that's just shit that I'm going to be, like, talking about throughout the game, so it's kind of a little bit less necessary to drill into it pre-game. But before playing it, it is kind of important to get an idea of what the, like, social and political landscape is in Ferelden right now. So I went through and I played it the very first time I ever played Origins. I didn't know any of this stuff. And so they're referencing all of these things, and they're like, there's all of this nuance in character interaction that, like, completely went over my head, which is fine. It's coherent anyway. But then halfway through the game, I started reading The Stolen Throne, and, like, some things I did, like, a complete 180 on. I was like, wait, suddenly knowing all of this makes all of the difference. Wait, there's so much here that they don't tell you. What? So it's just like, yeah, no, I care very, very deeply about specifically the fact that we hate Orlais. And I'll get into that. But anyway, it's been about 15 minutes, so I should probably get started. I was hoping, because I had some people talking about how they wanted to, like, hear me ramble about this, and it's like I was hoping that some of them would show up, but we're not there. So I wish I had some background music too. I wish I'd thought of that. But I didn't. So it is what it is, I guess. Also, I've never actually used PowerPoint. I've never used PowerPoint, especially on a computer. So I'm sitting here like, oh my god, there are like two little windows. One of them pops up on the screen that I have the display on, and then one of them pops up here on my other monitor, and it's 7 o'clock already. A bitch better get a move on. One of them pops up over here, and it shows me, like, the preview. It shows me the slide that I have up now, and it shows me the next slide, and it has a space for notes. And if I had known this in advance, I would be so much more pulled together than I am right now. But hindsight 2020, I will improve on this for next time. So, with that being said, I guess I better get right down to it. Welcome to my TED Talk about Dragon Age and the background history of Thedas pre-Dragon Age Origins. And that's what you missed on Glee, the pre-Origins book report. And we'll just be glad I'm not using footnotes, because a bitch does love footnotes. If I could figure out how to use footnotes on this, it's over for you bitches. But anyway, first things first. This is Thedas. Look at this beautiful country here. This is an incredibly detailed map. This is not even the highest res map that I found out there, but it's pretty intense. And I do love a good fantasy map. It is one of my favorite things in the world. So there are some important places on here. You're going to hear Tevinter, the Tevinter Imperium, mentioned a whole lot. Specifically, though, where we're interested in at this exact moment is Ferelden, right down here. The fun thing also about Thedas, that they never explicitly say, but they kind of hint at, is that it appears to be in the southern hemisphere because it gets colder the further south you go, which I thought was very neat. It's just a very neat little tidbit there. Like, it's very cold in Ferelden, and it gets colder the further down south you get into the Kokari Wilds. So that's very cool. So, there's Ferelden. Our favorite country. We're going to get real acquainted with this map. This is where we're going to be spending the entire game. The free marches are very, they should be very familiar, because up here, they're across the Waking Sea. You can just see the little hint there. Right there is Kirkwall, and it's going to be important in Dragon Age 2. And it'll dive into it a little bit, but in Dragon Age 2, you start off here in Lothering, and the plot actually kicks off very close to the beginning of Dragon Age Origins. They start off at almost the same point, except the main character of Dragon Age 2, Hawke, when shit hits the fan, they and their family flee north across the Waking Sea and end up in Kirkwall. So, no, it's very, very cool. But this is the map that we're going to get really well acquainted with over the next however many hours that we spend playing this game, because this is the map that we're going to be seeing every time we fast travel somewhere. Crucially, over here though, we have the little hint. This is Orlais, right over here, over to the west. There's the other important country here, and that's Orlais. We hate Orlais. All of my homies hate Orlais. Orlais is, well, it's a piece of work. Let me just say that. And a lot of it is not explicitly spelled out. Let me be real. The aesthetic of Orlais, perfect, wonderful, just fantastic. Politically, kind of. Oh yeah, no. Or if Ferelden is fantasy England, Orlais is fantasy France. And, you know, given the history of those two countries in real life, you can kind of assume what the vibes are like between these two countries in Thedas. It's very similar. So let me just... A lot of this is going to be spent talking about Orlais, because over the course of the game, we're going to get to know Ferelden real well. And I know they say not to read your slides, but I am 100% going to read the slides. Almost all of the text here is taken from one or more of the, like, canonical, like, texts. So it's either from Codex entries or from World of Thedas or something like that. But Orlais is a country in southwest Thedas known for its culture of extravagant nobility and as the birthplace of the Chantry. Ambitious and wealthy, Orlais is the most powerful human nation in Thedas. The Orlesian capital, Val Royeaux, is home to the Chantry's Grand Cathedral, the center of the Andrastian religion's power. And that's gonna be important. This is gonna come up a whole lot. I could go off on an entire rant about Orlais, specifically with the Chantry. It's going to be very important. Over multiple blights, the Orlesians have used the Chantry to expand their influence beyond the nation's impressive borders, notably to the north into Tevinter territory and southeast through Ferelden. Yeah, the Chantry they're the fantasy Catholic Church. The extremely corrupt, like, Renaissance fantasy Catholic Church. They do not like magic for reasons that will be explained a little bit, but they are the ones who run the Templars, who basically have authority over mages. But crucially, remembering that the Chantry is a political power and its seat is in Orlais. The Chantry and Orlais are very, very closely connected, which is something to always keep in mind when one or the other acts. Navarra. This is the shit that Orlais has got up to in Navarra. It's not particularly important on its own, except in that it sets a precedent for everything else that Orlais does. A long war between Orlais and Navarra over the mineral-rich Blasted Hills, a region between the two countries, ended during the Blessed Age. Just to establish there that they had a long war over resources. The Pentagast family's rule was only threatened during a brief period when Orlais occupied the land during a blight and was reclaimed when Caspar II ousted the Orlesians. That's important because it was during a blight. A blight, which it's the point of this game, it's a huge disaster, war, plague thing where supposedly everyone in the world is supposed to be working together to defeat it. Orlais has a history of using things like this to catch people with their pants down, as it were. Yeah, a real big dick move. Not a big dick move, but a dick move. Kirkwall, as we saw on the map before. The shit that Orlais got up to in Kirkwall. The new Exalted Marches, which are like crusades, were a series of military campaigns by the Chantry against the Qunari at the end of the Steel Age through the beginning of the Storm Age. In 756 Storm, the Qunari captured Kirkwall during their retreat from southern Thedas and held it for up to 4 years. It's unclear. This is me paraphrasing everything. Up to 4 years, it's unclear exactly how long they were there, but potentially a little while. When Lafay, a chevalier, was appointed the city's first viscount by the emperor in 760 Storm, he made it his mission to undo the religious conditioning that the Qunari put in place. The Lafay bloodline remained popular enough that when the city finally rebelled against Orlesian rule in 805 Blessed, Viscount remained the enduring title for Kirkwall's rulers despite its origin. Emphasis mine here. When the city finally rebelled against Orlesian rule in 805 Blessed, he was put in power in 760 Storm. Which means, when I calculate all this out, Kirkwall was under Orlesian rule for 44 years. And they only left when an active rebellion kicked them out. So now we've seen Orlais do this a couple of times. Orlais either takes advantage of the weakness of another country during a disaster, or they show up offering help. The Qunari conquered Kirkwall. The Orlesians say, listen, we're gonna come in power, we're gonna get them out of here because they're oppressing the people, and then they don't leave. They take over and they stay. Storm was about 100 years. I don't think it's necessarily a hardline rule for ages. Usually an age will end when some significant event happens. The Storm Age was about 100 years. I had to look that one up because not all of them are. I think. If I'm remembering the calendar correctly. Yeah, kind of. Ages of expansionist aggression have done little to endear Orlais to its neighbors. Much of Thedas looks at Orlais with disrespect and even contempt. They're bullies. The Orlesians have squandered favor with the Free Marches, battled with Navarra, and invaded Ferelden. They also crushed the Dales, the last true home of elves in Thedas, in the name of Andraste. So again, they're in the name of Andraste, using it a religious excuse. And the whole crushing the Dales, the last true home of the elves, that's a whole other topic. The shit that goes on with the elves, there is enough material there for its own talk. Crucially, the bit that we need to be concerned with here is invaded Ferelden. That's important because that sets the immediate stage for the things that are going to happen in this game. Because it brings us to the Orlesian occupation. 824 Blessed to 9-2 Dragon. This was a big deal. Yeah, exalted marches are basically crusades. They're wars waged to conquer or drive out a people with a religious excuse, as it were. The Chantry has done a couple of these. But the Orlesian occupation. Orlais occupied Ferelden for 70 years. Remember, they were in Kirkwall for 44 years. They were in Ferelden for 70. And they were assholes. They were really nasty. There's a timeline somewhere, I believe the Blessed Age was right. Yeah, the Blessed Age was right before. There was the Steel Age, Storm Age, Blessed, Dragon, I think is the sequence. And coming up here are just some nice quotes that I pulled from The Stolen Throne, just to kind of dig into some of the Orlesian stuff here. The Orlesians didn't believe in anyone owning land but their fancy painted up nobility, so it came as no surprise that they didn't look favorably on Ferelden's freemen. An extra tribute tax was concocted by the Orlesian emperor, and any freeman who couldn't afford it had their lands confiscated. Loghain's father had managed to scrape together enough to pay the tax the first year, so naturally it was decided the tax could stand to be even higher. The next year, his father refused to pay, and when the soldiers came, they determined that not only was the farmhold forfeit, but his father should also be arrested for tax evasion. Loghain's family resisted, so now they lived out in the Ferelden wilds. Ferelden is like fantasy England. The elves live all over Thedas now. Their ancient kingdom was known as Arlathon, but that fell like a long time ago. Elves live pretty much all over Thedas as like secondhand citizens at best. So crucially here, if they don't like non-Orlesians holding land here during this occupation, so they're doing the best they can to kick out the previous Ferelden landowners by just raising taxes. You're just like, you know what? You have to pay to live here, and if you can't, then you get arrested for tax evasion. Your lands are then given to Orlesians. The Orlesians had taken a harsh toll in the Benorn, their taxes plundering the countryside as surely as any army. Fear, however, made many hesitant to consider helping the rebels, especially when they might be a lost cause. Too many graphic examples had been made by the usurper. Rotting carcasses hung in cages at nearly every fork in the road. Glaring examples of imperial justice. So they're just out there killing people who speak up against them. For 70 years, Orlais had a reign of terror in Ferelden, doing their best to elevate any new Orlesians coming in to kind of stake out the land there, and doing their best to keep the previous Fereldans down. And at the time of the immediate previous events, the king in place in Ferelden was named Megran, and he was put there as a punishment. The emperor exiled him to Ferelden. It's like, oh, you're king of Ferelden now, but it's a punishment. He didn't want to be there. And so naturally, he's not inclined to be nice at all. In the distance, he heard the muffled sounds of forced laughter in the throne room. The laughter was punctuated by someone screaming in pain, probably for Megran's amusement. It was the only reason the king delighted in such gatherings. Someone always had to suffer before the night was through. Someone always suffered. So he just takes delight in torturing people here in Ferelden. When the occupation first started, the king was Vandarin Therin. It took Orlais a little while, I want to say like a decade or two, to really get a firm foothold in Ferelden. But by the time they took over the capital, Denerim, his son, the arrows are all out of place here. I'm sorry. They're not exactly set up properly here. I didn't check the formatting. His son, Brandel Therin, was known as the Defeated, because at that point, the rulers of Ferelden basically had to go into hiding. Brandel and his daughter, Moira Theron, who was known as the Rebel Queen, yeah, basically lived on the run their entire lives, doing the best they could to lead the rebellion with no set seat of power. And this went on, like I said, the entire occupation, until we get to Merrick. And Merrick is going to be important here. This is all of the backstory here, because now we get to the events of The Stolen Throne, the first book. Or why is this Merrick guy such a big deal? I did have a cat named Moira. Not named after Moira Theron, but I like to think she kind of was a badass. But anyway, we got Merrick. My guy, my sweet son Merrick, also known as Merrick the Savior. He was forced to take up his role as king when his mother was betrayed and murdered in front of him. Actual Ferelden nobles looking to curry favor with the Orlesian usurper lured her out with promises of support and then killed her in front of Merrick. He went on the run and very shortly after was rescued by Logain MacTyr, who was an outlaw. As said previously, his family couldn't pay the taxes on their farm, and so he and his family were on the run. When I say his family, it was him and his father, because I forgot to put this in the slides, but it is vitally important that they killed his mother. And I'll get into that a little bit more when I start talking about Logain, because Logain's very important. But anyway, Merrick ended up rallying the Ferelden people and defeating Megren's forces, ending the Orlesian occupation. And that is why Merrick is a big fucking deal. We're going to hear about Merrick a lot. Yeah. Oh yeah. In front of him. Mm-hmm. So both Merrick and Logain literally watched their mothers killed. So I suspect that was a little bit of a bonding point between them. Merrick, he's kind of a himbo. I'm not gonna lie. He's kind of he's a little bit dumb. He's very charismatic, very sweet. And thus passes the last true king of Ferelden, he thought with bizarre amusement. He wanted to be a good king, but he didn't know his ass from a hole in the ground. And Rowan. Right. Rowan, I don't dig into her too much here because tragically the books don't really give her much substance, but she was Merrick's fiancée for much of this. She had two siblings, Eamon and Tegan, who were sent away somewhere safe, I believe to the Free Marches, for the last bit of the rebellion here. But Rowan, Logain, and Merrick were like the big three. Rowan remounted her horse. If we did run into the enemy, a few more men wouldn't make much difference. She glanced at Merrick and smiled mischievously. Besides, as I recall, you're a fine rider. We'll just outrun them if need be. I fall off horses, he explained to Logain with a sickly grin. It's this thing I do. So it's like, yeah, Merrick is, Merrick. He's charming. Not exactly the most brilliant man, I think, in the world, but very sincere, very self-deprecating, has this very kind of like I said, self-deprecating sense of humor here. Catriel is also somewhat important. She was an elven spy for the Orlesians, who was sent to get Merrick into her confidences and then betray him. And then there was Merrick. Catriel found herself smiling as she thought of her blonde, grinning fool of a prince. He would not have lasted 5 minutes in the courts of Val Royeaux. If she had known it was going to be so simple to draw him into her confidence, she needn't have tried so hard. How very earnest he was. And yet how very much like his country he was as well. Completely without artifice. She had kept expecting to find some vile secret hidden within him, some taint floating just beneath that gleaming surface, and yet there was nothing. She told herself that it was that he lacked depth, but when he had looked into her eyes that first night, even she had found it difficult to maintain her composure. The master who had trained her all those years as a bard would have been ashamed. So he's very charming. Even this spy kind of sent to betray him is like, oh, wait, but I like him. And he's just like a good guy. Don't be an idiot, Logain scoffed. You're the last of royal blood. I don't want to hear that anymore, Merrick sighed in exasperation. This isn't about putting the blood of Calenhad on the throne. This is about getting that Orlesian bastard off it. Because if he was a good king for Ferelden, none of this would matter. Like, crucially, the only reason this is important to him is because Ferelden is suffering. He doesn't want to be king. He doesn't particularly care about this. A little bit. He's a little bit. He's just oh yeah, like charisma out the ass. Incredible. Merrick is a good person, Catriel said bitterly, and when he looks at me, he sees the same thing in me. He sees the good I didn't even think was even there. The longer I'm with him, the more it seems like it might almost be possible that I really am that person. Logain nodded knowingly. Almost, he agreed. He's not ready to be king yet, he said evenly. He's too trusting. She nodded silently. But he needs to become ready, and it'll be hard for him. I know. Her voice was hollow, resigned. So, Merrick is very naive in a lot of ways, especially towards the beginning here. Merrick felt responsible for those lost lives. Logain could see that. He had stared at the streets full of dead men and women who had fought against mounted knights only because they believed in him, and Logain had seen that a part of Merrick's soul had shriveled up right then. He's a sweet guy. But this is why he's like an icon in Ferelden. Catriel comes in, she betrays the army, it's a massacre, the Battle of West Hill. She maintains her cover. They escape to the deep roads, which are dwarven tunnels that go under most of Thedas. They manage to make their way to Gwaran, a city on the coast, completely in the deep roads, and emerge back where the army had retreated, seemingly miraculously having come back from the dead. And so it becomes this huge rallying point for the people of Ferelden when Merrick escapes this incredible massacre and comes back when he'd been declared dead by Megran. And we got Logain Mactir, who is the hero of Riverdane. And I unfortunately forgot to put little bullet points in here for him, but crucially, like we've heard about Logain, he was not a noble. He was the son of a farmer turned outlaw whose farm was burned down, sent them into hiding. When the Orlesians came to destroy their farm. This is it's the fabled PowerPoint stream. I'm sorry, you're like I'm already into it a little bit. You missed the very beginning of it where I was talking about how Orlais is the fucking worst. We are now talking about the Orlesian occupation of Ferelden because that's what is crucially important to know going into Origins. That this country, Fantasy France, who are known as like huge bullies in the world, that use basically any pretense they can to get into a country and then just like don't leave. They invaded Ferelden for 70 years and were assholes. And so these are the important figures who basically brought that to an end. We just got over we just finished talking about Merrick, my sweet himbo king, Merrick, and now this is Logain. And I forgot to, as I was saying, I forgot to put a lot of the bullet points in for Logain, because, you know, I just assume that most people know these things because I spend a lot of time thinking about him, but apparently not everyone does. You did miss a himbo! It's fine, I'll go back so that we can take a look at him. Look at this himbo. Oh my god! Yes, he is. Guess which one I love more! Anyway, Merrick. This is Merrick. His mother was betrayed and murdered in front of him. He was rescued by Logain. He ended up rallying Ferelden and ending the Orlesian occupation. So, yeah. Oh no, what happened? Wait, hello? What? Hello, why did it do that? Hold, please. I have to figure out what kind of nasty... What are we on? We're gonna turn those off real quick. Sorry about that. Because clearly it's being a little bitch about this. Here's hoping. Why did it delete your messages? I'm so sorry about that. I know, he's got a badass cape, and I can't believe you also missed the most scholarly part of my presentation. What are you doing? No, he's got a fucking dope-ass cape. Anyway, Merrick's important. Just, like, remember that. Merrick's fucking important. I know, like, why? Why did it do that? I literally don't know why. I'm so sorry about that. I turned that off, and here's hoping. Oh no. Thank you, Stream Elements, here protecting me. It's really funny. Anyway, he's kind of a himbo, is the point that I was making here. He's a dumbass. We love him. He's got a very self-deprecating sense of humor. He's just generally a nice guy. He's, like, sincere. It's terrible. And crucially, Logain thinks that he needs to, like, become more of a hard ass if he's going to be an effective king. So, that's pretty much where most of this, you know, he cares about people. It's where most of this is gone. But anyway, back to this guy. The I can fix him. As Beastworm was so nice to point out. We have a himbo and we have the the I can fix him. This is Logain. He's clearly my favorite. And I didn't put the bullet points on here because you know, I can just ramble about this guy all day. He's the hero of Riverdane. Oh, also, I'm sorry to, like, I have to bring up the other embarrassing thing that I was forced to say. Yeah, he's also competency kink, so just know that. Anyway, he, like Merrick, saw his mother killed in front of him by Orlesians because they decided that they wanted them to pay more taxes than they could afford and use that as an excuse to take their lands. And crucially, they just, they burned down the entire farm, kicking them all out. They raped his mother in front of him and then killed her, slit her throat, and then left them there. And they had to become outlaws. So Logain fucking hates Orlesians. And it doesn't bring it up here, but he also had a Mabari, like a big war dog, that are, like, super important in Ferelden culture. Yeah, they also took his dog. Yeah, just generally, Logain really fucking hates Orlesians. But he rescued Merrick, and then ended up low-key as the commander of rebellion forces. So, Rowan, again, Merrick's fiancé. Rowan found herself impressed by Logain's ability to quickly assess whether a band was legitimately interested or just eager to gain favor with the king by trying to trap them. Once she had become infuriated with Logain as he pulled her away from a dinner table without explanation, only to belatedly realize that guards had been quietly maneuvering in the shadows. He's very good at strategy, is the thing. He notices things, he's good at reading people. And also, just a little note here to, like, put a pin in this, hold on to this for later. Logain was the first person to actually use the elves in the rebellion, to, like, treat them as actually competent warriors. He put together this group of archers, the Night Elves, and used them to terrorize the Orlesians. They became renowned in the rebellion for their incredible guerrilla warfare tactics. So, crucially though, going back to the point earlier, where he doesn't believe that Merrick is really ready to be a king. Not that he doesn't think he can, but, like, oh boy, son, you got a lot of growing up to do. You think this is a kingly decision, do you? Why not? Merrick asked acidly. Suddenly you're an expert on being a king? Then he immediately regretted his words, holding up his hands. Wait, I didn't... You're going to need to make some hard decisions, Merrick, Logain interrupted, his icy blue eyes narrowing. Ones you've been avoiding. You have an enemy to defeat. And while I may not know much about being a king, I do know what it takes to win a fight. The question is, do you want to win or not? It's true, never enough cyberbullying. That's what we're here for. So crucially, that elven spy, Catriel, she and Merrick kind of had a thing. Especially went on in the Deep Roads when they were on the run there. But then Logain found out that she was a spy. And kind of selectively revealed information. An audiobook? You know, someday maybe. He reveals that she was working for Megran, and just, tells Merrick about that. I know, I was thinking I have so much text in this, and do you know how much I called this already? This is 54 slides, and I am using, like, maybe a fifth of the stuff that I compiled. There's a lot of it. Megran sucks ass, actually. He is the Orlesian usurper, basically fucks over everyone in Ferelden, doesn't even want to be here. He's here in exile. The Orlesian Emperor sent him here as a punishment. Basically, he's here. He's miserable here, and he's here to make everyone else miserable. Fucking hate that guy. His name does rock, though. He's got a really great name. So anyway, he reveals Catriel, and Merrick kills her. And he's broken up about this, but, like, listen. That's all right. That's fair. He gets Merrick to kill Catriel. And he's immediately broken up by this, but, like, Logain's just like, listen, this is what had to be done. She betrayed Ferelden. She nearly ruined the rebellion. This was justice. It is done, and it can go one of two ways now, he stated. Either Merrick wallows in self-pity and is no use to anybody, or he realizes that being a king and being a man are not always the same thing. So, yeah, that's kind of Logain's whole deal here. Oh my gosh. The formatting on this next one is again fucked up, and I'm very sorry. It definitely, I mean, yeah. the point is that Merrick is very nice, but he's very idealistic, and when decisions are uncomfortable, he doesn't want to make them. When he doesn't feel that they're the most, not necessarily morally correct, but he focuses more on an interpersonal level than what is administratively necessary for running a kingdom, especially when you are trying to, as an underdog, regain control of a kingdom from an extremely violent oppressor. He's just not great at that. He's very good at interpersonal relationships. He's very good at, following his heart and doing what's probably morally best, but maybe not what's necessary, which is what Logain is all about. What is necessary. Even if you have to get your hands dirty, you have to do what's best for the kingdom. In the gamer, the dude in golden, he kind of has golden armor. Oh, in the game? No. No. That's the one in golden armor in the game is not Merrick. But crucially, this is the turning point here. When he kills Catriel and does the nasty thing that is necessary, this is the big turning point where he kind of decides to start making the unpleasant decisions, even if they're not personally what he believes in. Right. Yeah, he's good in a lot of ways, but crucially, Logain's point is that he's avoiding making decisions that are uncomfortable for him in a way that a king cannot do. It's all very well and good for you as a person to refuse to make a decision based on moral objections, but when you're a king, no matter if it means doing nasty things, you have to do what is best for your country as a whole. Preserving Ferelden is the job of the king. And in his opinion, Merrick needs to get that through his head. So that's kind of what goes on there. And then we're getting into this kind of it blocked over. Basically, the title here is, would you look at these dinguses? Someone please tell them what a polycule is. Because crucially... Exactly. Because crucially, there's a love triangle here that's so stupid, and I'm so mad about it, because Rowan doesn't deserve this. Yeah, well, Logain would support you on that. Well, actually, no, he wouldn't. The opposite direction. But anyway, Logain is in love with Rowan. Rowan is in love with Merrick, but also with Logain. Merrick doesn't make any decisions there, and instead is making googly eyes at Catriel. So that's what's going on here. But look at them. Look at these dumbasses. Look at them. You should have seen him up on that bluff, Rowan said. He was magnificent. The knights that fought with him are already talking about it. Logain smiled a bit shyly. Merrick wondered if it was, in fact, the first time he had actually seen the man smile. It was a difficult situation, and we did what we had to. Oh, you want me to fucking read it? Okay, all right. I'll come back to the other one. You look beautiful, Logain told her. Rowan held up a hand to stop him, taking a painful breath before speaking. Don't do this, she protested weakly. I'm not a fool, he said quietly. I see how you look at him. You do? Her tone was bitter. I know you are promised to him. I know you are to become his queen. It's bullshit! It's bullshit! Anyway, she's bragging on Logain here. He was magnificent. He smiles a little bit here. It was a difficult situation, and we did what we had to. He then looked up at Merrick almost apologetically, holding up what remained of the purple cloak. I, also ruined your mother's cloak. Merrick laughed and Rowan joined in. You're being modest, she teased. Like, they're such... What? Look at them! And then crucially, yeah, just all get them all together. You should all kiss. You should all kiss about this. I'm not going to stop being mad about this. And then we're going to get to the wildest shit of all. Listen, this is the scene in this book that I, like, put my book down and I'm just like, are you fucking kidding me? Like, are you kidding me? What are you three doing? The barn scene. Let me go back here for a second. The barn scene. Crucially, Merrick has just gotten together with Catriel. Rowan oversaw it. I mean, low-key. I went into the AO3 tag. There are not that many fics for this OT3, as it were. I'm mad about it. Anyway, there's just been a battle. Merrick got together with Catriel. Rowan oversaw it. Logain kind of made a hint that he was into her, and she's like, don't. And so he's... If I ever write it, you will be the first to know. Research. Yeah, that was definitely... Yeah, I did it for the research. This was years ago. I looked years ago. There might be more by now. There aren't more by now. I have the most niche interests in the world. Anyway. So, Merrick was hurt in a battle. It's very dramatic. The next morning, Logain is gathering up all of his stuff and he's going to slip out of here because he's stuck with them for too long. It's time for him to leave. The very Han Solo kind of thing. He never meant to stay this long. The barn scene. That's true. The prince was sweating and pale, blonde hair askew. The fact that he had arrived in a rush was painfully apparent, as he was wearing neither shoes nor shirt, only a pair of baggy trousers, no doubt donned in haste. The heavy bandages around his chest were already spotted with dark blood stains from the exertion. Merrick leaned heavily on a wooden staff he was using as a crutch and stood panting in a doorway, glowering at Logain indignantly. Where do you think you're going? Merrick demanded, gasping for breath. Logain ignored him, keeping his attention focused on tying up the saddle. Cut to later. Rowan, don't, Merrick said more forcefully. She gestured toward Merrick. Is this or is this not your friend? Have the three of us not shed blood together for years now? Is that not a bond that is more important than anything? This is the... Logain winced. Merrick. Holding tightly onto the staff, Merrick got down on his knees. Alarmed, Rowan ran over to support him to try and pull him back up, but he refused. The staff quivered, and he grunted with effort as he dropped down fully and then looked up at Logain. Please, I'm begging you. You and Rowan are the only friends I have. And then, Logain speaking to Rowan, he stopped. I was leaving because I was the lesser man, according to you. She flinched. I shouldn't be the only reason you stay. You're not. He turned toward her, his gaze hard. He is. Will you put on a shirt at least? Fine, if you insist, Merrick chuckled, shouldering his staff and hobbling out the door. Logain waited a moment, shaking his head in quiet disbelief. I'm a fool, he thought. Then he followed Merrick out. I'm like, do you see this? Do you see this? Do you see this shit, Xiaoxing Chen? You know, I'm just gonna get on my knees and beg my friend to stay in a completely heterosexual way. They're gonna be the death of me. This is completely normal behavior. For sure. Oh my god, so many of their problems would have been fixed if they just made out about this. Just completely, just guys being dudes. Are you for fucking serious? Anyway, Logan was in love with Merrick as well. Send tweet. Anyway, 5 feet apart because they aren't gay. Anyway, that's my rant. That's a little rant of this section here. Why? It's true. It's true. We all know this. This is my little side rant here at the end of The Stolen Throne, talking about why this big interpersonal relationship here is important. It's crucial to keep in mind that these 3 people were all in love with each other, because the fallout from this is going to be fucking incredible. Anyway, moving on. This is a much shorter section here because it's just the calling, and or why Logan doesn't trust the Wardens further than he can throw them. And crucially speaking, mostly the reasons that Logan doesn't trust the Wardens further than he can throw them is because of going back to Logan not trusting Orlais, and we've already seen why he's correct to not trust Orlais. And why, crucially, Orlais loves to get into places under the pretext of something else. Either a place is weakened by the Blight, and so they're going to get in there. They're going to be like, oh, you have a little problem here that you could use some soldiers to help with? Well, why don't we just send some soldiers in here, and then they don't leave for 44 fucking years? We fucking hate Orlais. They're sneaky-ass bastards. Never let them into your country. Anyway. The Wardens. I've had one, yes. What about second rant? This is a lot shorter. We're getting way, way, way closer to the end of this here. Most of this was earlier on. Anyway. Again, I'm just going to be reading bits from the book because it's like, listen, I could summarize all of this, but like, the textual evidence here. The Wardens show up looking for help navigating through the deep roads, which, as we've already pointed out, Merrick, Logain, Rowan, and Catriel all went through the deep roads, and so they're like, hey, you went in? We want to get some of your guidance here. You hear that? King Merrick teased his friend. It appears you have a reputation in the Empire. That should make you happy. I'm thrilled, Logain said dryly. If the Tyrn is referring to our order's exile from Ferelden 2 centuries ago, Genevieve began, I can offer an explanation. Logain gave her a direct stare. Of course you can. She paused for a moment, clutching her hands together in a thoughtful gesture that Duncan recognized. She's trying to decide how much she should tell him. He also knew what her answer would be. The Grey Wardens had many secrets and never said more than they absolutely needed to. He had learned that much very quickly. Wardens are secretive bastards. Trying to convince Logain to let him go with the Grey Wardens. The Darkspawn are real, and what if the Grey Wardens are telling us the truth? And what if they aren't? Logan walked over to the throne, putting his hands on the armrest and leaning down to look Merrick directly in the face. You know, like you do with your bro. God, I'm moving on. Even if you think that the fact that they have come from Orlais, meaningless, you must know that the Grey Wardens have always had their own agenda. They serve no nation and no king. They will do what they think is best to deal with this threat and won't care about you or Ferelden or anything else. Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, the visuals. The visuals. Yeah, moving on. Sorry, I'm trying not to speak too fast, but there's a lot to get through here, so I'm trying not to read it too slowly either. He had a point. 2 centuries ago, the Grey Wardens had taken part in a plot to overthrow the Ferelden king. It had failed and the order was exiled, but what few people knew was that it had taken the entire Ferelden army to drive them out. Thousands of men pitted against less than 100, and the Wardens had very nearly won. They were a force to be reckoned with, no matter their numbers. So Logan's like, we're really gonna do this? We're gonna let, first of all, this great decision here to let Wardens into the country. From Orlais, we're letting Orlesian Wardens into the country. A force which, traditionally speaking, does not require that many numbers to pose a serious threat. This is a great plan. In Loghain's mind, the Grey Wardens were Orlesian. The first enchanter, who brought their petition to him, was Orlesian. This had to be some manner of plot. Not that it would be the first. There had been several assassins over the years, as well as more than a few attempts by disaffected bands to overthrow him. And while Loghain could never prove that the Empire was behind them all, Merrick did not disbelieve his theories. Perhaps he was even right about this. I mean, I'm also like, I particularly care about fantasy politics in a way that not many people do. And so I'm perhaps leaning a little bit more heavily on, oh, this is important. Like, you can get a full experience with that. But I'm just like, God, please, I need y'all to understand why I have certain opinions about certain characters. Crucially, Loghain makes points. And here, if what King Merrick learns could harm the Grey Wardens, could make us look like fools and prevent us from carrying out our duty, then you must make certain he never reaches the surface at all. Duncan gasped in disbelief. You mean... She held her chin thoughtfully, her thoughts distant. He may try to escape. Whatever his reasons for joining us, however, the die is cast. If he must disappear down here in order for us to claim whatever story we wish on the surface, then that is what we must do. So they're ready to just kill him if necessary. Yeah. All right, shut up. It's my hyperfixation and I can fixate how I want to. So they lie to everyone else. And crucially here, they lie to their own. Something was not as it should be. She felt frustration as she realized she was missing an important piece of the puzzle. What was making the Darkspawn act so strangely? Assuming Pregame had indeed been taken captive, why do that now, when they had never once done so in all the centuries the Grey Wardens had sent elder members of their order to the calling? Unless they had. Those who went to their calling were never heard from again. What if they had been sent into the Darkspawn's arms and not to their deaths at all? Yet the order claimed it knew, and she had to believe. Like, okay. So what they find down there is, the Darkspawn are acting weird. We get this figure called the Architect, who is a Darkspawn mage and capable of speaking. And his plan is to find the old gods and kill them before the Darkspawn find them and start a new blight. He's like, oh, listen, we're compelled to try and find them, so we should just track them down and kill them so that we, the Darkspawn, can be free from this. And well, we want to make peace with everyone, with all of the humans up there. And so, crucially, what we have to do is make you immune to the blight. Grey Wardens are immune to the blight. So what we do is basically forcibly put every human or every person on the surface forcibly through the calling, or through the joining. Yeah, definitely. 100%, yeah. That's the same Architect, in fact. So, it's not a great plan. This would involve most people dying. We don't love this. And what about Merrick? Duncan blurted out. He regretted it as soon as he asked the question. The others looked at him curiously, especially Merrick. Only Genevieve didn't look at him. In fact, she studiously avoided his gaze. He will be returned to the surface, the Architect said carefully. In time. That's too kind, Merrick remarked. Returned how? Duncan insisted. Alive? The Darkspawn gave a hint of what might have been a smile. To allies. It didn't elaborate, and Duncan desisted. He obviously wasn't going to get an answer on this either, though he had to wonder what sort of allies the creature could be referring to. To allies. Oh, crucially. Oh, look at the allies. It's the Orlesian first the fucking Orlesian. Ramil chatted with his two fellows in Orlesian as they rode, though not to a great deal, as they seemed in a hurry. It was enough to tell Duncan a few things, however. For one, all three of the mages were Orlesian. Oh yeah, no, this was face to face. They went into the deep roads and they got captured by Darkspawn and it was a whole thing. All three of the mages were Orlesian. In Ferelden, that was not exactly common. From what he could gather, it also seemed like the tower had been taken over. There was mention of other mages being brought under control and even killed. Out of all this, the mage continued, this is a later scene, you are what pleases me most. When I brought the Grey Wardens to make their request at the palace, I had hoped to snare the famous Loghain, the hero of River Dane. To take that arrogant fool before the Emperor. He paused and regarded the king with a wide grin, almost luxuriating in his victory. But you, the great Merrick the Savior, you will please the Emperor more than anything that I could possibly have hoped for. Yeah, well, so then, Loghain is a big damn hero. Starts, he figures out what's going on, starts getting to the tower to get them back. If it is Loghain, Merrick said, his smile widening, then you're in trouble. With his precious king our hostage? I think not, Brigand sneered. Then you don't know Loghain. Oh yeah, no. 100% Loghain would. Fiona back to her feet, Loghain spotted the king, and his eyes widened in surprise to see him there. Then he scowled and strode purposefully over to the man. I see you're not dead. Duncan couldn't be sure from the man's tone if he was pleased or disappointed. Mostly he sounded annoyed. Good to see you too, Loghain, Merrick chuckled tiredly. How in the maker's name did you get here? How did you know? Loghain frowned. Know you were here? I didn't know that. What I knew was that the Orlesians would betray you, and I was right. He shot a disgusted glance at the beheaded first enchanter nearby. Yada, yada, yada. I've been watching for the fool to make his move, and he did. His Orlesian supporters took over the tower 2 days ago. So yeah, fucking Orlesians, as always. So, the other thing that happens is Fiona, that it mentions here, is one of the Grey Wardens here. She's Orlesian, as the rest of them are. She's also a mage. The Grey Wardens are one of the few places that a mage can exist outside of chantry oversight. So, a lot of them are very keen on it. So she's a warden, Orlesian, an elf, and a mage. She and Merrick definitely got involved when they were in the Deep Roads. It was a whole thing. Because Merrick, definitely weak to just, so pretty elves. It's, Merrick, I got issues with you, man. Anyway. They show up again a little bit later on. Is coming in secret in the night. I'd rather Loghain not hear about you coming. He's still not convinced the Grey Wardens weren't in league with Ramil, and I'm not sure he'll forgive me for telling your order it could return to Ferelden for good. I think you can expect he'll be watching your every movement like a hawk when you do. Yeah. And so they show up, and we learn that Merrick is letting the Grey Wardens back into Ferelden permanently after they got banned from the country, 2 centuries ago for trying to overthrow the king. They got kicked out of Ferelden. Merrick is now letting them back into Ferelden. Loghain's not going to love this, especially because they literally just pulled this shit. Alright, yeah. Wow, innuendo central. Honestly. So anyway, they show up, and crucially, Fiona shows up and is like, oh, congratulations, by the way, it's a boy. So Merrick now has a bastard son with an Orlesian, Grey Warden, Elven mage. So that's fun. I wish Fiona shook her head firmly. No. What I want is for him to be human. I want him to be fully human and not in line for your throne, not competing with your other son and tied to this royal blood that has brought you nothing but grief. I want him to have a fresh start. She looked at him hopefully. You can do that, can't you? I can have him raised away from the court, Merrick said, considering. But people are bound to wonder who his mother is. Loghain will want to know. The child will almost certainly want to know. What will we tell him? Tell him nothing. Let him think his mother human and dead. She reached over to where Duncan gently cooed and rocked the baby, patting his head with a melancholy smile. It will be easier, for him and for you. So, Yeah, no, I mean, it's true. It does sound like the beginning of a joke. So anyway, crucially, that's where we leave off. That's basically all of the background here for what's going on. Congratulations, that has been about an hour and 20 minutes. So, we've got about an hour and a half left. Patting his head with a melon. Yeah, yeah, definitely. So crucially, that's what's going on. So how about that? All that being said and done, how about we get into this game? We're not going to be able to get too terribly far. Yeah, yeah, it is. So now that's what you missed on Glee. So that's all of the background knowledge needed for this. So crucially, I'm going to start playing this fucking game. We're not going to have a whole... But why male models? What? We love this intro. Yeah, that's the sound of Dragon Age! Yeah! I know! Wild, right? Now, crucially, I can't log in. It doesn't... It wasn't just PowerPoints. It's... Why? Don't worry. There will be more PowerPoints. That was just the background PowerPoint. Then I'm going to have to, like, later on, especially... Because, as I was saying also, I just covered 2 novels. The Stolen Throne and The Calling. There are 6 novels total. There are 6 of them. I'm going to have to get into all of them because they're all important. These were simply the 2 that take place before this game. Some of them take place later on in the timeline, and therefore it would be smiling. Oh no! Did it? Fuck. Well, I didn't actually. I reread 2 of them. Yeah, definitely. Yeah. Definitely. Yeah. Also, crucially, when it becomes relevant for my rants about mages and or elves. So anyway, we're gonna start a new game here. So, how is the game doing right now? I can't figure out... Oh, here we go. And so is the Golden City blackened with each step you take in my hall. Marvel at perfection, for it is fleeting. You have brought sin to heaven and doom upon all the world. And that is from the Canticle of Threnodies, 8:13. Yeah, tell me if the game is, like, lagging super bad, because...
The Chantry teaches us that it is the hubris of men which brought the Darkspawn into our world.
Ah, fuck, encoding overloaded.
Had sought to usurp heaven, but instead, they destroyed it. They were cast out, twisted and cursed by their own corruption.
Damn.
They returned as monsters, the first of the Darkspawn. They became a blight upon the lands, unstoppable and relentless. The Dwarven kingdoms were the first to fall.
Yeah, let me know
And
if
from
it
the
becomes,
deep
like,
rose, the Darkspawn
impossible to see
drove
what's
at
going
us
on.
Again and again, until finally we neared annihilation.
Ugh. Unfortunately, I can't make it like...
Till the Grey Wardens came. Men and women from every race. Warriors and mages. Barbarians and kings. The Grey Wardens
Okay,
sacrificed
let me
everything
try to
stem the
open this
tide of
here. I
darkness.
can't figure out how to... make it not full screen. Encoding overloaded.
It has been 4 centuries since that victory, and we have kept our vigil. We have watched and waited for the Darkspawn to return.
Damn. Okay.
But those who once called us heroes have forgotten. We are few now, and our warnings have been ignored for too long.
Well, fuck. Okay.
It may even be too late.
Yeah,
I have
I think it
seen
is.
with my own eyes what lies on the horizon.
Let me... You know what? You know what? You know what I'm gonna do? I'm just gonna restart it. I'm gonna restart the stream. I'm gonna restart this, and we're just gonna... I'm gonna use a different program and hope that it doesn't fuck up, because we're not too far into this yet. So, like, we're gonna make the attempt. Be back in a split sec.